your light on that? Okay, did we do it? All right. We're live. Yay, success. Welcome this morning to Braveheart Conversations. We're super happy to have you today. I'm Aurora, and I'm here with my co-host today, Marie Wallace.
Hi, everybody.
And I just want to thank you wherever you are joining us from. We're live every Thursday. This week we're Zoom. Usually Marie is here with me, but we're here in spirit today together. You can find us on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Braveheart Conversations. You can find all of our previous episodes there, and you can join discussions about the podcasts. And you can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, wherever your preference is. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started in our topic today, which is discernment, how to know who is safe. And this was an interesting question I posed this week, and the answers were interesting because they were all over the board. A lot of people thought feelings, intuition, body language, eye contact, all those sorts of things, which are definitely helpful. But I really would like to emphasize how we can determine if someone is safe based on the biggest indicator, which is what they've done in the past, right? If you're
Should speak louder than words, right?
louder than words, I talk a lot about true colors, seeing someone's true colors, and the fact is that we can be pretty good at putting on a front. And not only that, but I can actually be really genuine about wanting to do well and wanting to treat people well, but sometimes my past behavior shows that I haven't really been capable of doing that, or I haven't developed the skills to do that, or I really have the desire if it's convenient, but not really if it requires work. So I just want to talk about how we can protect ourselves, because I really do believe that it is our responsibility to protect ourselves. Nobody else is going to do it for you. And sometimes we get really upset that people have taken advantage of us, and totally, like, it doesn't feel good to get hurt. But if I walk around just hoping that nobody else is going to take advantage of me, I'm really just a sitting duck. I'm just ripe for somebody else to come in and hurt me again. So I get to take responsibility for discerning who is going to be harmful and who isn't, because there are people out there that are really great. And I'm struggling with wording here because this is not exactly what I want to say. It's not a matter of good and bad people. It's not finding good people or bad people. But there are people who will hurt you, whether intentionally or not. And I'm not saying that those are bad people. I'm not saying people that have made choices in the past that have been harmful are bad people. I'm saying our discernment gets to tell us who is trustworthy or not. It's not a matter of saying, oh, I see that you're a bad person, I got you. It's more about saying, I see that you're not trustworthy, and I love who you are, but I'm not available for being hurt. So I just want to make that distinction. This is not about demonizing people or making them bad and wrong. It's more about knowing who you can trust, who you can be vulnerable with. And this isn't just romantic relationships. This applies to bosses. This applies to coworkers. This applies to clients, friends, family.
Yeah.
Everybody. Look at their track record. Look at where they've come from. So, Marie, what has your experience been with, maybe all of us kind of have to step in it, step in the shit a few times before we figure this out. But what has your experience been with having experiences with unsafe people and then learning how to have discernment to protect yourself?
Well, I've never had any crap happen in my life. No, I'm just kidding. I've never stepped in shit. Yeah, just you just have to muck around for a while before you experience what's okay and not okay. And after a while, when you get really tired of hanging out in this shit and the smell, and you go, oh, okay, I think I'm ready to take some steps to move into a more healthy relationship. And yeah, I do believe that your actions speak way louder than your words. And what is the behavior? And look for indicators, not just like you were saying, feel it, or intuition. Those are really good ones, but you need a little more data than that. And over time is really what's, helpful, because I've been the person who gives a person one more chance and one more chance. And I think all of us have been there because we want to believe in the goodness and the rightness of people's actions. And I believe they, do maybe sincerely want to try harder, but sometimes they don't have the will or the skill. Like our dear friend talks about, they're just not able to give us what we need or want. And I love that you put that back on us, that it's our responsibility.
Totally. Absolutely. So tell me more about what are the behaviors you look for when people are.
The number one thing I tell people, this is funny, and this is just what I learned through my experience, and that is, how do they treat the people in their lives that are exes, or their mother-in-laws, or people that they might have had some kind of mucky experience, right? So when you've broken up with them, how do they behave? Or when someone has broken up with them, like their ex-wife or their ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend, because I'm not, one-sided here, but from my experience, how did they treat those people in their lives when something went wrong, right? Or something didn't work out the way that they wanted to? Do they blame? Do they shame? Do they shove off that responsibility on someone else? Or do they take ownership in their part of what happened? Do they face their own issues? Did they grow and learn from that experience? So I usually look at their past history to see how they dealt with things, to know if I really want to move forward with them, because we all have a finite amount of time and space and energy, and we want to best use that with people that we surround with that are growing and learning along with us. That's kind of what I use as an indicator.
And I want to clarify too that we're not saying you have to be friends with your ex in order to have.
Oh, no. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, before I jump into a relationship, how do they treat the other people in their lives? So going back to what we were saying earlier, because these are relationship principles, how do they treat their mom? How do they treat their mom? Right? If I want someone to treat me like a lady, and they're honoring and supportive and loving towards me, how do they treat their mom? I think that's a super good indicator on any side, how they treat those that are closest in their lives. Because if they honor and respect them, they'll honor and respect me. Because they've had issues with their family, because we all do.
With somebody. Yeah, and I also think it is important, even if they aren't able to remain friends or be in relationship with an ex partner or friend or whoever or boss, how do they talk about that person? Thank
you for bringing that up.
Or is it like, can they identify their part, or can they, are they coming from a place of hatred, or are they coming from a place of love and wisdom? Because our discernment still allows us to release people, but that doesn't mean that we release them with hatred or blame, or they're such a shitty person.
Right.
When I've released people in my life, it's not because they're a terrible person, it's because they're not a fit for me. And so
which is why I said that part about how are they facing their own part in it? That's a really big thing, because we are all responsible for when something works or doesn't work, or we all have our part in it. So yeah.
So for me, the way I was really pondering this week is looking at their past behavior, like I like to use the example of a lender. So if I'm a lender and you want a loan from me, I don't sit you down and interview you to see how genuine you are about wanting to pay me back. Because you could be super genuine and your credit score is, 500 because you haven't paid your past bills, so you haven't kept your word with other people. So that's a really objective example, right? So they're looking specifically at, well, in the past, have you made promises that you haven't kept? And then the lender will decide based on your past behavior. Have you paid? Have you followed through with your word? That's going to indicate whether or not they're going to give you a loan. And we often aren't willing, like we see it as rude to look
Yeah.
back at people's past behavior instead of saying, oh, well, this is an indicator. And that lender isn't saying, I hate you, get out of here. They're saying, I just don't see that you're a trustworthy um, person to lend to this money or this loan. And the good news is that credit score can change, but it changes based on behavior. You can
Over
leave.
time. Mhm.
Yeah, you can leave with that denial. And 6 months later, you could have improved your score and paid people back. And that lender will again, see if you are qualified for this loan. So I just think that's a good example to me. Like, what is their action telling me? And um, I will see, we've talked about hopelessness before, when to have hope and when not to have hope. And this is one of those scenarios that this applies. I can have hope in trusting someone, but there has to be two elements. One is that desire piece, which we're usually really good at knowing. We can see if somebody has desire, if they're genuine about wanting to change. But that desire will only go so far. The second thing is, are they taking action? So are they doing something to improve themselves? If my desire is to get healthy, right? Or eat well and lose weight and gain muscle. If that's my objective, that's my desire. What actions am I taking to achieve that goal? Am I seeing a trainer? Am I in a group? Do I have some accountability? Do I have a gym membership? Do I buy healthy groceries? Am I learning how to cook? These are all action steps, right? These are all things that I'm doing. So lots of us have the desire to change, but we're not willing to take the inconvenient steps because
Yeah.
it's always inconvenient. So I find in many relationships the desire is there, but the cost is too much. Yes, I'll figure it out if you give me, if you do it for me, then okay. But if it's on me to make this change, maybe not. And I see this with addiction. If one partner has an issue with alcohol, you can say, well, I want to get sober, but are they actually taking the steps to get sober? Are they
Are
actually
they
doing
making the meetings? Are they doing all the things? Yeah, because it's a big step.
right? And there's lots of these things. So the behavior is the indicator. So it's those two things are the magic things when you know to give hope or not. If you're just seeing the desire and you're not seeing the behavior, it's probably not a wise investment to give them hope and to give them more and more chances, because that desire is not going to change anything. So I think looking at that past credit score, if you will, is a really, really, really important indicator about trust and trustworthiness. Um, I also think there are a couple things that we can do that we can gauge what their reaction is, and we have a really good indicator of how they're going to treat us in the future. One is setting boundaries. If I say a requirement that I have to be in my space and they flip out, or I say no to something and they react poorly, that is a massive, massive red flag. We both get to be safe to share what is and isn't okay. That's really, really key. The other thing is, can we disagree? Is it safe to disagree? Do we have to come out on the same, with the same opinion in a discussion, or is it still safe to have a conversation where we don't see eye to eye and nobody gets, lit up or triggered or angry because the other person isn't agreeing with them? So those are really big things to me that are close to my heart. And again, this isn't saying this is a good person or a bad person. This is an indicator to me. And there are some people that I still have in my life that I know aren't super safe, but I know where I can go with them and where I can't. I know when I should be vulnerable or when I shouldn't. And, so there's certain people I know are really triggered if we talk about something we disagree. That's
Right.
not a safe conversation for me to have with that person. So I think just knowing, I want to feel fully safe with my inner circle. The people that are in my inner circle, I want to be 100% vulnerable with and know that that's going to be okay. But there are other people, like maybe coworkers or clients, or maybe some friendships or family members where that they have some stuff that maybe they haven't worked out. And it's really just important to know who you can trust in certain ways and who you can't. So, Marie,
I really like the part that you talked about with the conversations, what are okay and what is not okay, especially right now with the political climate we have and all the things that we have going on, right? And even with certain people that we're really close with and we can usually trust in certain areas, maybe, I'm thinking of a friend I have who is able to be really open with someone except for in the area of politics. And so they've both agreed to not talk about those things. But just how are they in a conversation? What is okay and not okay? And is it okay to disagree? I agree with you 100% on, is because that's an indicator if we're going to be able to grow this relationship into what it can fully be. If I'm because I've had both sides of the fence where I've had that one person who doesn't talk to me at all or say anything, and I'm supposed to just guess, or I've had the person who just yells and screams in my face and then I shut down and no communication can happen. So just being able to have these healthy conversations and have, like you said, those boundaries in place to be able to say, well, this is okay. And this, but it's mutual, because I have been on those one-sided where, one person is totally giving in, taking, but not, the other person's not allowed to be in that mode. So anyway, I just really appreciate you bringing up that communication piece, because it's a super big indicator if that relationship's going to be able to grow past what it is right now today.
I love that you brought up that silence too, because there's two different ways of being an unsafe person, right? One person can be unsafe because they won't allow you to have your opinion, and by God, they're going to change your opinion because it's not okay to disagree. So then you start, suppressing, and you don't feel safe to share your opinion. And then there's the flip side where the other person, you never quite know where they stand on the issue because they aren't being honest and authentic with you. They are not operating from transparency. They are just agreeing with whatever comes up, right? And that can be its own sense of insecurity and unsafety, because you don't really ever know what their true opinion is, because they're just like going with the flow. So
or they don't tell you what's wrong because it is a way of manipulating you. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So they'll give you the silent treatment and you're supposed to just guess what they're thinking and feeling. And you could be wrong, which gives them a lot more room to manipulate you. Does that make sense what I'm saying there? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think we've probably all been in relationships like that where it's more of the passive aggressive.
Yeah. You just guess how I'm feeling right now, you're probably wrong, whatever you guess.
Yeah. So. And I think, before I got into my own recovery for codependency, that was me too. Like, I thought everybody should just know what respect was. Everybody should just know. And it's my version, right?
Right.
And nobody knows what my version of respect is. I get to, again, take responsibility for communicating that. And this is a boundary thing. I'm responsible for communicating my boundaries and enforcing my boundaries. So when I expect that other people are just going to know what my boundaries are without me saying them, and then also follow through with them, like I'm putting myself at their mercy. And that's not their job. Their job is not to babysit my boundaries. It's my job.
I
It's
like
my
that thought.
job to babysit my boundaries and make sure that I am following through with the standards and requirements that I say that I have. And I think this also brings up the next point, which is, we can be discerning and we can say, oh, based on your past choices, I can see that you're not trustworthy. And then I know my pattern used to be trying to manipulate them into being trustworthy instead of just acknowledging this is their true colors, right? This is what they're showing me, and accepting that fact and allowing that person to let them go because they're just not a good fit, right? They're just not, those values just don't mesh. Instead of accepting what they were telling me with their behavior, I would try to manipulate them into having my values and standards. And that's its whole own, like, it's super disrespectful, dishonoring. So when you have that discernment, it is not your job to change them into who you want them to be. It is your job to see if they're trustworthy or not. And then you respond accordingly. We are responsible for us, not for them.
Well, it totally changes the energy too, because isn't it exhausting to try to to do all of that, to manipulate, control, manage?
Well, and
It doesn't work. You're spending all your time on trying to make this relationship be what you want it to be instead of what it is, instead of using your time and energy and resources on the relationship that is more fulfilling and less managing. I mean, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but I'm not exhausting myself trying to make it something that it really isn't. So if you're feeling really exhausted and tired on trying to make something work, just take another look at it, because it is some work, but it's not like exhausting kind of work.
Well, if we go back to that credit score idea, and that lender, the lender
I love that.
could go babysit that person, right? Oh, your credit score is 500. Let's fix it, right? And they could make them pay their bills and like give them reminders, and they could babysit them. Does that actually make them more trustworthy, even if that credit score raises? No, it doesn't, because that wasn't ever genuine. That wasn't an actual internal change. That was just a forced change. And I see a lot of relationships operating in that way. It's like that lender, like saying, well, I know how you can get a better credit score. Let me fix that for you. And it's not coming from their own hunger. When someone's hungry to change, like, I can identify this in myself. I was hungry, so hungry to change my codependency. So hungry that I got into Al-Anon. I got a sponsor. I called her every week or more. I read literature. I read so many books about codependency and abusive relationships. And I had support groups and coaches and healers. And I did everything I could think of. Everything. And that was an internal hunger. Nobody came alongside me and was like, you realize you got a codependency problem? Let me help you fix that. Let me walk you to it. Let me pick you up and take you to meetings. Let me shove this book down your throat. That didn't happen. Not ever. I was hungry. So that's an indicator, like, who is driving the change?
Yeah.
If the lender is driving the change, it's not genuine change. If the person who has the shitty credit score is driving the change, there's a pretty good chance that they're genuinely hungry for it and they're actually going to make the change. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I really like that. I really like the metaphor of the lender because that's one that we can all relate to, and we know how unbending they are, and they have a very set guidelines on how to go about lending you this money, which is exactly what boundaries are, right? They're guidelines on how to treat me and how I will treat you. And like, I like that you said those are personal too, because sometimes we forget that not everybody operates the same way we do. Because if you respected me, you should. Well, everybody's level of respect is different, and that's what the conversations are about. So I love that lender metaphor because it's very clear in your head what's acceptable and what's not. And that's the part. And I like the fact that you said who's driving the change, right? Because the lender's not going to go, hey, like you said, not babysit you. The lenders, they could give you some ideas of how you can make that better, but they're not going to sit there and hold your hand, and they're not going to force you to do those things that you need to do to show your trustworthiness and that you are going to develop that over time. They're just not going to. And I think it's just a healthy way of being. So that's a great metaphor. I'm glad you brought that one up. It's a great one.
The other thing that's coming to mind too is one of the voices or the resistance that we feel when we're saying, oh, your credit score doesn't measure up, right? Your behavior doesn't measure up, and I don't want you in my space like that. We find that very hard to say because we feel what? We feel rude, we feel mean, we're selfish, we're being a bitch. Like, those are the things that come up, and we're like, oh, I can't be that mean. I need to be forgiving and compassionate. So I want to play out this scenario with a lender. If a lender were to give loans to every single person that they thought was genuine, and they felt bad for them and they just wanted to be forgiving, what would happen to
They'd
that?
be out of business fast.
They would be out of business. They would be out of business, and they could help no one. And this is what happens when we fail to have boundaries or standards, when we have no requirements to access us, because that's what our boundaries are ways to access me. There's requirements to access me. There's requirements to access my time, my energy, my attention, my body, my resources. There is a requirement to access me. Those are my boundaries. And that's what we're talking about here, is we determine who is worthy to be in our space, right? Not worthy of love, totally different thing. Everybody is worthy of love. There are people who are worthy to be in my space based on the requirements that I've set. And so if I allow anybody in my space and I don't have any requirements, I want you to see the parallel that actually harms everyone. It doesn't just harm you, it harms everyone when we allow everybody to access us without any standards. When that lender holds that boundary and says, I'm sorry, but you don't qualify. You don't qualify for this loan. She actually acts in the interest of all of her clients because she is able to give loans to people that qualify, that are trustworthy. And it is the same for us when people want to access our time and energy and our presence. It is not free and it's not cheap. There are some requirements.
Or easy. Yeah.
Not easy.
It's hard. But then on the other side, when you get that loan or that relationship that is trustworthy, and it's just, it's a lot easier. Yeah, it's not this overwhelming, soul sucking thing. It's something that you genuinely feel energized growing and learning with this person and expanding, because you do feel that trust. You do feel that this is someone who is able to grow and learn with you. And because they are consistent over time, and because they do show you who they are in that respect, it's a lot easier to trust. But if someone's demanding that you trust them, or they get to act in that victim role of, well, I would if you, they don't face it head on, or they start blaming or shaming or feel entitled to you. Those are all those big flags that we were talking about of not honoring you or what you're asking them to do. So
I love that you brought that up, and we can wrap up on that piece. But I love that you brought up that trust is earned. We're not entitled to it. It's earned. I don't get to demand that somebody trust me. I don't have the right to demand that someone trust me. My behavior gets to show them if I'm trustworthy. And it's the same way for me. I've had people in my life that have been, how dare you question me, right? And they act entitled to my trust, even though their behavior has shown not, they haven't been trustworthy. They have not earned that trust or gained that trust. And even when they demand it, I could want to give them my trust. But the thing is, our intuition knows better. And even if I wanted to force myself to trust someone, that's not just something that you just choose to do. It's not something that you can, subconsciously ignore all of the ways that you've been taken advantage of. Your body knows better. And so pay attention to that red flag. If somebody is saying they demand trust of you and that it's on you to trust them, no, that's a huge red flag. It is our responsibility to be trustworthy. I have that responsibility in all my relationships. I have that responsibility with my romantic partner. I have that responsibility with my clients, with my family, with my friends. Like, I get to earn their trust. They can tell me if I'm trustworthy, right? I can't just choose that no matter how much I hurt someone that I'm trustworthy. That doesn't even make sense. So
demanding that loan, right? I demand you give me that loan.
Exactly. No. So yeah, trust is earned. It's not something that we demand. It's something that we earn.
What a great conversation.
Yeah, and trust is such a beautiful thing when it's there, right? Between two safe people that can be vulnerable with each other, like that's beautiful. That's love, right? A loving relationship is a trusting relationship. So anyway, I've loved this conversation. This has been a
Me
lot.
too.
I'm going to check really quick to see if we have any questions. I do not see any on my end. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you all so much for being here, and being a part of this conversation. And I hope you join us again next week, every Thursday morning. And if you would like to find any of our previous episodes, again, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, or our Facebook group, facebook.com/Braveheart Conversations, or I'm sorry, facebook.com/groups/Braveheart Conversations. And if you would like to email us any questions, if you feel like there were some questions that this episode brought up for you, or you'd like us to talk about a particular topic, please send us an email and let us know. Even if that needs to be anonymous, that's great. You can email me at defytheaverage@gmail.com. And you can also contact
Marie@mariesgold.com. Yeah, we look forward to that. We love interacting with you and learning from you and growing with you.
Yeah, so please reach out. Don't be shy. And with that, we will see you next week. I hope you all have a phenomenal week and spread the love out there. Bye-bye, guys.
Yeah, bye-bye.